The summer of 1996 in Colorado was supposed to be perfect for outdoor adventures. The Arkansas River was running at ideal levels, drawing rafting enthusiasts from across the country to experience the legendary Royal Gorge Rapids. On July 15th, a group of experienced guides from competing rafting companies gathered for what should have been a routine safety assessment run through Cache Creek Rapids. 28 years later, in the drought of 2024, the canyon would reveal evidence that transformed everything investigators believed about that day. Before we begin the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. We're really curious where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a rating. Tyler Morrison adjusted his life jacket one more time, checking that the whistle was secured. At 24, he'd been guiding rapids for 6 years, starting right after high school. His Motorola pager buzzed against his hip, the code 143 from Ashley. "I love you." He smiled, thinking about the pregnancy test she'd bought yesterday at Walgreens for $12.99. They'd been dating for 2 years, meeting when she started working at the Royal Gorge Rafting Company office. The morning air carried the scent of pine and the distant sound of Soundgarden playing from someone's boombox in the parking lot. Tyler grabbed his waterproof Kodak camera, the one he always used to document river conditions. His detailed logs had become legendary among local guides. Every rock, every eddy, every dangerous spot meticulously recorded in spiral notebooks he kept in his beat-up Toyota 4Runner. Brett Caldwell watched Tyler from across the parking lot, his jaw tight. At 26, Brett ran Colorado Wildwaters, the second-largest rafting company in the area. But second place wasn't good enough. Not when Tyler's eco-conscious tours were stealing his clients. Brett had invested everything into his company, maxed out 3 credit cards, taken a second mortgage on his condo. The bank statements in his glove compartment showed he had maybe 2 months left before bankruptcy. "You guys ready for this?" Jordan Hayes called out, walking between the two groups with his clipboard. As the regional safety coordinator, Jordan had organized this assessment run. 25 years old, clean-cut, with the kind of smile that made people trust him immediately. He'd been in the position for 3 years, appointed after getting his degree from Colorado State. Everyone liked Jordan. He attended every community meeting, volunteered for search and rescue, even helped organize the annual Royal Gorge Cleanup Day. Ashley Peterson stood near the launch point, her blonde hair pulled back in a scrunchie. At 23, she managed the booking system for Royal Gorge Rafting, but everyone knew she was capable of so much more. She'd grown up in Denver, moved to Cannon City for the job, and fallen for Tyler almost immediately. Though lately, something had been different. The stress of keeping the business profitable, Tyler's obsession with environmental documentation, the pressure from her parents to move back to Denver and get a real job. Miguel Hernandez, a freelance photographer from Phoenix, was there to capture footage for Outside Magazine. 28, with expensive equipment that he protected obsessively. His Canon EOS 1N was loaded with fresh film, 36 exposures that would later become crucial. "Mind if I get some shots of the safety check?" he asked Jordan, who nodded enthusiastically. "More publicity the better," Jordan said, his voice carrying that politician's charm he'd perfected. "We need people to know Colorado rafting is safe, regulated, especially after what happened in West Virginia last month." The preparation ritual was familiar. Check the rafts for damage. Verify all safety equipment. Review the river conditions. Tyler pulled out his notebook, covered in duct tape from years of use. Inside, between observations about water levels and hazard locations, he'd recently added new notes. Notes about things that didn't belong in the river, things he'd seen on early morning runs when no one else was around. Brett approached Tyler near the equipment shed. "Heard you've been telling clients to avoid Section 8, Brett said, his voice low. Section 8 was Brett's moneymaker, an exclusive run that commanded premium prices. "Just documenting what I see," Tyler responded, not looking up from his equipment check. "Water quality's been off there. You notice anything weird?" Brett's face reddened. "What I notice is you trying to sabotage my business." again. Ashley stepped between them. "Come on, guys, not today. We're supposed to be working together here." She touched Brett's arm lightly, a gesture that lasted a second too long. Tyler didn't notice, focused on his equipment, but Miguel's camera captured it. Frame 12 of 36. The group consisted of 12 people total, the 3 guides, Jordan, Miguel, and 7 other rafting company employees from around the region. They'd take 4 rafts, 3 people each, running the moderate Section 7 before attempting the more challenging Cache Creek Rapids. Jordan gathered everyone for the safety briefing. "Remember, this is about establishing new protocols. After the incident in West Virginia, insurance companies are demanding better documentation. We run this clean, professional. Miguel here will be photographing for the magazine, so let's show them Colorado knows what it's doing." Tyler raised his hand. "What about the water quality tests? I submitted 3 reports about unusual chemical odors near Section 8. Jordan's smile never wavered. "Those reports are under review. EPA takes time, you know how it is. Today, we focus on Sections 6 and 7. He made a note on his clipboard, the same motion he'd made dozens of times when Tyler brought up concerns. Always noting, never acting. They divided into groups. Tyler, Ashley, and one of the junior guides in the lead raft. Brett with 2 employees from his company. Jordan positioned himself in the 3rd raft with Miguel and another guide. The 4th raft carried the remaining 3 participants. "Radio check," Jordan called out. Everyone confirmed their waterproof Motorola radios were working. "Emergency protocol is unchanged. 3 whistle blasts means immediate assistance needed. Channel 16 for emergency traffic." At exactly 2:30 p.m., they pushed off from the launch point. The river was running at 350 cubic feet per second, perfect conditions. The sun was high, temperature 78 degrees. Tyler led the group, his raft cutting through the water with practiced precision. Behind him, Brett followed, then Jordan's raft, then the 4th. Miguel snapped photos continuously. The dramatic canyon walls, the concentrated faces of the guides, the whitewater spray catching the sunlight. Frame 18 showed Tyler pointing at something on the riverbank. Frame 19 showed Brett looking back at Jordan. Frame 20 showed Ashley's hand gripping the raft's safety line, her knuckles white. They navigated Section 6 without incident. The rapids there were Class 3, moderate difficulty, requiring precise maneuvering but nothing an experienced guide couldn't handle. Tyler's notebook would later show he'd marked several new hazards, rocks that had shifted during spring runoff. As they approached Section 7, Tyler noticed something. Along the canyon wall, about 15 feet above the waterline, there were white marks. Fresh paint or chemical residue, he couldn't tell from the distance. He pointed it out to Ashley, who squinted in the bright sunlight. "Probably just mineral deposits," she said, but her voice carried doubt. The radio crackled. "Lead raft, this is Jordan. We're stopping for position check before Cache Creek Rapids. Pull into the eddy at marker 7-2. Tyler guided his raft into the calm water. The others followed, creating a small flotilla in the eddy pool. Jordan stood up in his raft, clipboard protected in a waterproof bag. "Okay, Cache Creek Rapids coming up. Class 4 water. Technical approach required. Tyler, you've run this most recently. What's the line?" Tyler stood carefully. "Enter center left. Avoid the pow-over on the right. There's a hydraulic at the bottom that's gotten stronger this season. Stay left of the rooster tail. Punch through the final wave train." Brett interrupted. "I ran it yesterday. The line's moved. Center right is cleaner now." "That takes you too close to the strainer," Tyler countered. A strainer was a deadly hazard, rocks or logs that let water through but could trap a person. Jordan raised his hand. "We'll run it as Tyler suggests. He's got seniority on this stretch." Brett's face darkened, but he nodded. They pushed off again at 2:47 p.m. Miguel checked his watch and made a note. He was meticulous about recording times for his photo captions. The canyon narrowed here, the walls rising 200 feet on either side. The sound of the rapids ahead grew louder, that distinctive roar that made hearts race even for experienced guides. Tyler entered the rapids exactly as planned, center left, avoiding the pow-over. His raft bucked and pitched but held the line perfectly. Behind him, Brett followed, then Jordan. The fourth raft entered last. For 15 seconds, all four rafts were in the heaviest water, navigating the complex hydraulics of Cache Creek Rapids. Then everything changed. Miguel, shooting from Jordan's raft, captured it on film. Frame 31 showed all four rafts in the rapids. Frame 32, taken 3 seconds later, showed Tyler's raft emerging from the rapids, empty. Frame 33 showed Brett's raft, also empty. Frame 34 showed his own raft with Jordan still aboard, but the other guide missing. Frame 35 showed the fourth raft with only one of the 3 original occupants. In 15 seconds, in broad daylight, in perfect conditions, 3 people had vanished. The remaining 9 people reacted with trained precision despite their shock. Jordan immediately called a code red on the emergency channel. Multiple persons in water, Cache Creek Rapids, immediate assistance required. He gave the GPS coordinates from his handheld Garmin unit, one of the few available in 1996. They pulled into the first available eddy, quickly accounting for who remained. Tyler Morrison, gone. Ashley Peterson, still in the raft, hyperventilating, unable to explain what happened. Brett Caldwell, gone. One guide from Brett's raft remained, the other missing. Jordan's raft had lost 1 guide. The fourth raft had lost 2 employees. "I don't understand," Ashley kept repeating, her whole body shaking. Tyler was right there. He was right there, and then nothing. No splash, no struggle. He was just gone. The survivor from Brett's raft, a 19-year-old guide named Kevin Chen, was equally confused. Brett vanished, but not like he fell out. It was like he was pulled straight down. But that's impossible. Jordan took control, his safety coordinator training kicking in. Everyone stays put. Search and rescue is en route. Nobody goes back into those rapids. He pulled out his cell phone, a Motorola StarTAC that barely got signal in the canyon, and managed to connect with emergency services. Within an hour, the canyon was swarming with search and rescue personnel. By nightfall, they'd found 3 of the missing rafters downstream, all from the fourth raft and Brett's raft. The search for Tyler Morrison and Brett Caldwell continued for 3 weeks. Dogs tracked their scent to the water's edge and no further. Divers found no bodies in the underwater caves and eddies where victims typically surfaced. The investigation initially focused on equipment failure or freak hydraulic conditions. But Miguel's photographs, once developed, raised more questions. The timestamp on his camera showed a 3-minute gap between frame 30 and frame 31, but Miguel swore he'd been shooting continuously. The film itself showed no signs of damage or tampering. Jordan Hayes led the investigation coordination, interfacing between the rafting companies, insurance investigators, and law enforcement. He provided detailed reports, organized search grids, and maintained a command center at the Royal Gorge Rafting Office. Everyone praised his dedication, especially considering he'd been right there when it happened. Ashley Peterson was hospitalized for shock the night of the incident. When she was released 2 days later, she couldn't return to work. She moved back to Denver within a month, leaving behind Tyler's things, including his notebooks full of river observations. Those notebooks sat in an evidence box for 28 years. The official report, filed in September 1996, concluded that unusual hydraulic conditions, possibly caused by underground spring activity, had created a temporary but severe undertow that pulled the victims under. The bodies of Tyler Morrison and Brett Caldwell were never recovered. Case closed. But in the summer of 2024, the worst drought in Colorado history dropped the Arkansas River to levels not seen since record-keeping began. The canyon that had held its secrets for nearly 3 decades began to reveal them. The discovery came on a scorching July morning in 2024. Two hikers exploring the exposed canyon floor found something that shouldn't have existed. Arranged in a perfect arrow pattern, 7 carabiners lay partially buried in the dried mud, pointing toward the canyon wall. But these weren't random climbing equipment. Each one had initials scratched into the metal. TM, Tyler Morrison. BC, Brett Coldwell. The Canyon County Sheriff's Office reopened the case immediately. Detective Sarah Chen, no relation to Kevin Chen from the original incident, took lead. At 45, she specialized in cold cases, particularly those involving outdoor accidents that might not have been accidents at all. The drought had exposed more than just equipment. Entire sections of canyon floor, submerged for decades, were now accessible. The investigation team made their base camp where the rafts had launched 28 years ago. The parking lot was still there, though Royal Gorge rafting had closed in 2001. Colorado Wildwaters had lasted until 2008. The building that once housed both offices was now a tourist information center, its walls covered with faded photos from the 1990s rafting boom. Detective Chen started with the witnesses who were still alive. Ashley Peterson, now Ashley Williams, lived in Fort Collins. She'd married an accountant, had 2 kids, and worked as a real estate agent. When Chen called, Ashley's first words were, "I knew this day would come." The interview took place in Ashley's pristine suburban home, a far cry from the adventurous 23-year-old who dated a river guide. "I've thought about that day every single day for 28 years, Ashley said, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug. The official explanation never made sense. Tyler knew that river better than anyone. He documented every rock, every hydraulic. He wouldn't have been caught off guard. Chen showed her photos of the carabiner arrangement. Ashley's face went pale. Tyler always arranged his equipment in patterns. It was his thing. OCD, I guess. But this, she studied the photos. This is deliberate. He's pointing at something. The arrow pointed directly at a section of canyon wall that had been underwater in 1996. Now exposed, the rock face showed unusual discoloration, white streaks running down from a cave opening 30 feet up. The same type of marks Tyler had pointed out moments before entering the rapids. Jordan Hayes was harder to find. After the incident, he left Colorado, moving through various safety consulting jobs across the country. Chen tracked him down in Michigan, where he ran a corporate risk management firm. At 53, Jordan had gained weight, lost most of his hair, but still had that politician's smile. "Terrible tragedy," Jordan said over video call. "I did everything I could to coordinate the search, spent months working with the families. It nearly destroyed me, being right there and unable to help." Chen noticed something in the background of Jordan's video call, a photo from 1996, showing him at the canyon with the search and rescue team. "You kept mementos from that time?" "It changed my life," Jordan said smoothly. "Made me realize how important proper safety protocols are. It's why I've dedicated my career to risk management." But when Chen asked about Tyler's environmental concerns, Jordan's demeanor shifted slightly. Tyler was passionate, maybe too passionate. He saw problems everywhere. The EPA investigated his claims and found nothing significant. Chen pulled the EPA records. Tyler had indeed filed 3 reports about chemical odors and unusual water conditions near Section 8 of the river. All 3 reports had been marked "Investigated, no action required" by the regional EPA office. The investigating officer's signature was illegible, but Jordan Hayes was listed as the local contact who'd facilitated the investigation. Miguel Hernandez, the photographer, had become a successful documentary filmmaker in Los Angeles. When Chen reached him, he immediately flew to Colorado at his own expense. "I've never stopped thinking about those missing 3 minutes," he said, spreading out his original negatives on the detective's desk. "Look at the frame numbers, 29, 30, 34. Where are 31, 32, and 33? Enhanced analysis of the negatives revealed something extraordinary. The emulsion layer showed signs of chemical exposure. Not enough to destroy the images, but enough to suggest the film had been near some kind of industrial chemical, the same kind that might cause white streaks on canyon walls. Chen decided to explore the cave indicated by the carabiner arrow. The drought had made it accessible by foot for the first time in decades. Inside, she found something that changed everything. Dozens of corroded 55-gallon drums, their labels mostly worn away, but still showing partial hazmat symbols. The manufacturing dates were visible on some: 1994, 1995, 1996. Water sample analysis from residue in the drums revealed a cocktail of industrial chemicals: benzene, toluene, xylene. The kind of waste that cost thousands of dollars per drum to dispose of legally in the 1990s. The kind that some companies would pay cash to make disappear. Kevin Chen, the survivor from Brett's raft, now worked as a software engineer in Seattle. His testimony over video call provided a crucial detail. "Right before Brett vanished, I heard him say something. I thought I was mishearing because of the rapids, but he said, 'Jordan, what are you doing?' Then he was gone." The financial investigation revealed interesting patterns. In 1996, Jordan Hayes had purchased a house in Denver for $180,000 cash, unusual for someone making $35,000 a year as a safety coordinator. He'd explained it as inheritance from a grandmother, but no probate records existed. His bank records from 1996, subpoenaed from Wells Fargo, showed regular cash deposits of $9,000, just under the $10,000 reporting requirement. Brett Caldwell's business records, retrieved from storage, revealed he'd been desperately seeking additional income. His appointment calendar for July 1996 showed several meetings with environmental disposal companies, though his rafting business had no logical connection to waste management. But it was Tyler Morrison's notebooks that provided the smoking gun. Ashley had saved them after all, stored in her attic. The final entries, dated the week before his disappearance, were damning. July 8. Followed JH to Section 8 at 3 a.m. Watched him supervise barrel drop from Canyon Rim. License plate of truck, Colorado EKX-441. Hazmat placards covered with tape. July 11th. Brett knows something. Saw him arguing with Jordan behind the Sinclair station. Brett kept saying, "This is going to kill people." Jordan gave him envelope. July 13. Called EPA hotline from payphone. They said someone would investigate. Jordan volunteered to coordinate. This is wrong. July 14. Ashley thinks I'm paranoid. Maybe I am. But those barrels are leaking into our river. Cache Creek Rapids pulls everything down into the underwater caves. Perfect hiding spot. If something happens to me, check the caves. Detective Chen obtained a warrant for the underwater caves, now accessible due to the drought. Using ground-penetrating radar, the search team found two anomalies in sections that would have been permanently submerged in 1996. When they excavated, they found human remains. The first body was identified through dental records as Tyler Morrison. The second was Brett Caldwell. But it was the third body that shocked everyone, the missing guide from Jordan's raft, David Park, who'd supposedly been swept downstream and never found. The medical examiner's findings were chilling. All three showed signs of blunt force trauma, inconsistent with drowning or hydraulic injuries. More importantly, chemical analysis of the preserved tissue showed massive exposure to industrial solvents, the same chemicals found in the barrels. They hadn't drowned in the rapids, they'd been exposed to toxic waste and then placed in the underwater caves. The investigation reconstructed what really happened on July 15, 1996. Jordan Hayes had been running an illegal toxic waste disposal operation using the remote canyon sections to dump barrels from chemical companies across Colorado. He charged $500 per barrel in cash, a fraction of the legal disposal cost. The barrels were dropped from the canyon rim at night, falling into deep pools where they'd theoretically stay hidden forever. Tyler Morrison had discovered the operation and threatened to expose it. Jordan had organized the safety assessment specifically to eliminate Tyler, making it look like a rafting accident. Brett Caldwell had been brought into the scheme with promises of cash for his failing business, but developed cold feet. David Park had simply seen too much. The killings weren't spontaneous. Jordan had prepared a chemical mixture that would cause immediate unconsciousness when released into the air. The missing 3 minutes on Miguel's film corresponded to when everyone in the rapids would have been affected by the aerosol cloud. Jordan, wearing a hidden respirator, had maintained consciousness while the victims were incapacitated. But how had he made 3 people disappear so quickly? The answer lay in the hydraulics of Cache Creek Rapids themselves. Jordan had studied the underwater cave system extensively, knowing that bodies pulled down at specific points would be sucked into caves that were impossible to access without specialized equipment. He'd used weighted nets, pre-positioned in the rapids, to pull the unconscious victims down. The other missing rafters who were found downstream had never been in danger. They'd been instructed by Jordan to simulate falling out at predetermined safe spots, thinking it was part of the safety demonstration. They'd been found exactly where Jordan knew they would be. Jordan had then spent weeks coordinating the search, ensuring rescue teams looked everywhere except the actual disposal sites. His detailed reports and tireless efforts had been a perfect cover, directing attention away from the caves where he'd hidden the bodies. When Chen's team arrested Jordan Hayes at his Michigan office, he tried to maintain his innocence. But faced with Tyler's notebooks, the chemical evidence, and the bodies in the caves, his facade crumbled. The 53-year-old executive broke down, admitting to the murders but claiming they were never supposed to happen. Tyler wouldn't leave it alone, Jordan said in his confession, recorded on video. I told him the EPA had cleared everything, but he kept taking photos, making notes. He was going to ruin everything. The companies paid me $50,000 that summer. I was 25 years old, making more money than I'd ever seen. Jordan explained how he'd recruited Brett with promises of $10,000 to participate in staging the accident. Brett thought they were just going to scare Tyler, make him back off. When Brett realized Jordan intended to kill Tyler, he'd threatened to expose everything. David Park had simply been in the wrong place. He'd seen Jordan pull Tyler under and had to be silenced. The chemical companies Jordan had been working with were long defunct, dissolved during the corporate reshuffling of the late 1990s. But investigators found records of environmental consulting payments to various aliases Jordan had used. Over 18 months in 1995 and 1996, he'd disposed of over 300 barrels of toxic waste in the Arkansas River Canyon, earning nearly $150,000. The environmental damage was still evident 28 years later. The section of river Tyler had tried to protect showed elevated levels of carcinogens. Fish populations had crashed in the late 1990s, attributed at the time to unknown causes. 3 residential wells downstream had been closed in 1998 due to contamination, forcing families to relocate. Jordan Hayes was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and numerous environmental crimes. The trial began in 2024, with Ashley Williams as the star witness. She testified about Tyler's growing concerns, his meticulous documentation, and Jordan's constant dismissal of environmental warnings. Tyler died trying to protect the river, Ashley said, tears streaming down her face. He knew something was wrong. He tried to go through proper channels. Jordan was supposed to be the safety coordinator, the person protecting everyone. Instead, he was the danger. Miguel Hernandez's photographs became key evidence, especially the ones showing Jordan's position during the incident. Enhanced analysis revealed Jordan was wearing something under his life jacket, likely the hidden respirator that protected him from the chemical cloud. Kevin Chen testified about Brett's final words, how Brett had recognized Jordan was doing something wrong in those final seconds. The prosecutor argued this showed Brett had tried to stop what was happening, making him a victim rather than accomplice. The jury deliberated for only 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Jordan Hayes, at 53, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, the judge noted the particular cruelty of Jordan's crime, using his position of trust to commit murder while pretending to be a hero during the search. But the most emotional moment came when Tyler Morrison's parents, now in their 70s, finally learned what happened to their son. "He wasn't reckless," his mother said outside the courthouse. "He wasn't careless with the river. He was murdered trying to protect it. For 28 years, we wondered if we could have done something different. Now we know Tyler died a hero." The environmental cleanup of the Arkansas River Canyon began in 2025, funded by a combination of federal Superfund money and Colorado state resources. The process would take years, removing hundreds of barrels from various dump sites Jordan had created. The total cost was estimated at $40 million. Ashley Williams established the Tyler Morrison Environmental Foundation with the settlement money from the civil suit against Jordan's assets. The foundation provides grants for water quality monitoring and protection of Colorado rivers. Every year, on July 15th, they hold a memorial rafting run through Cache Creek Rapids, now cleaned and restored. Brett Caldwell's family had a more complex reaction to the revelations. His widow, remarried and living in Arizona, struggled with the knowledge that Brett had initially participated in the scheme. But the investigation's conclusion that Brett had tried to stop the murders provided some comfort. "He made a terrible mistake," she said, "but in the end, he tried to do the right thing. That's what killed him." David Park's family, who'd spent 28 years believing he'd simply drowned, filed a separate civil suit against the companies that had hired Jordan for waste disposal. Though most were defunct, parent corporations were held liable, resulting in a $15 million settlement. The case led to significant changes in environmental monitoring of recreational waterways. The Tyler Morrison Act, passed by Colorado legislature in 2025, requires quarterly testing of all commercial rafting areas and mandates surprise inspections of water quality near industrial sites. Jordan Hayes continues to maintain partial innocence from his cell in the Colorado State Penitentiary. In a series of letters to journalists, he claims the deaths were accidental, that the chemical release was only meant to cause unconsciousness, allowing him to fake the drownings and force Tyler to leave town. But investigators note that the amount of chemicals used would have been fatal regardless, and the positioning of bodies in the caves required deliberate action. The Arkansas River has slowly healed. Fish populations have returned, though some species remain absent. The white streaks on the canyon walls have faded, cleaned by environmental crews and natural erosion. The rafting industry has returned, stronger than before, with rigorous safety protocols that include environmental monitoring. The 7 carabiners that Tyler arranged as his final message are now displayed in the Colorado River Museum. The placard reads, "Tyler Morrison, 1972-1996. River Guide, Environmental Protector, Murder Victim." His final act was to point toward the truth, knowing that someday someone would follow his direction. In 2024, during the dedication of a memorial at Cache Creek Rapids, Miguel Hernandez spoke about the power of documentation. Tyler Morrison documented everything: the river, the hazards, the beauty, and ultimately the crime that killed him. His notebooks, my photographs, they waited 28 years to tell this story. Truth has a way of surfacing, even from the deepest waters. The most haunting detail emerged from Jordan's confession. When asked why he chose Cache Creek Rapids for the murders, he said, "It was Tyler's favorite spot on the river. He always said the hydraulics there were perfect, that the water knew exactly where to go. I used what he loved to kill him." The drought of 2024 that exposed the truth has been called both a tragedy and a blessing. Climate change had revealed a crime that might have stayed hidden forever. As one investigator put it, the river kept its secrets for 28 years, but rivers have long memories. When the water dropped, the truth remained. Today, a small plaque marks the spot where the carabiners were found. It simply says, "The truth runs deeper than the water." Rafters pass it every day during the season, most unaware of its significance, but guides know. They tell the story to those who ask, how 3 people vanished in 15 seconds in 1996, and how it took 28 years and a historic drought to reveal they'd never actually entered the water at all. The final grim statistic: investigators believe Jordan Hayes was responsible for dumping over 15,000 gallons of toxic waste into the Arkansas River between 1995 and 1996. The 3 murders were committed to protect a criminal enterprise that earned him less than most people now spend on a car. 3 lives ended, families destroyed, a river poisoned, all for money that Jordan had spent within 5 years on failed business ventures. The case remains a cautionary tale about the intersection of environmental crime and murder, how those trusted to protect can become the greatest threats, and how the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of surfacing when the conditions are right. Tyler Morrison spent his last days trying to protect the river he loved. 28 years later, that same river finally revealed his killer.